You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the Cleric.
And me, Paul Brophy. And today, Roisin, we're joined again by someone who's very, very familiar to our viewers here in the Irish Political Roundup, Patrick Murphy, who is CEO of the Ireland South and West Fish Producers Organisation. And in today's programme, we're going to be looking at the challenges currently faced by operators within Ireland's offshore and inshore fleet. So, Patrick, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup.
Hi, everybody watching, and hello to Roisin and Paul. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me on, lads. Pleasure as always.
Well, Patrick, as you know, since we met you in that rainy, windy October night in 2023 here in Castlecombe in County Kilkenny, we have been following up, as our viewers know and you know, in what has been happening since then in our Irish fisheries, Irish coastal economies and the communities. So Patrick, where are we now we're coming out of the summer recess of Dáil Éireann and going back in next week, hopefully. They'll be back after they go to the Flying Championship. So where are we locally in the local fisheries and the local communities and nationally and internationally?
It's more of the same, to be honest with you, Roisin. We were keep predicting the end of our fishing fleet in Ireland. We've been doing it for a while now, and the science is catching up with the predictions that we've been making for the last number of years. And unfortunately, there won't be enough fish given to the Irish operator for them to stay financially viable. There are other squeezes on fishermen. So, marine protected areas, which we're being told will be beneficial to fishermen, and offshore wind, which we're also told will be beneficial to fishermen. So you can imagine telling somebody that who's working inside in a shop, we're going to close the doors of the shop. You'll be left outside, and that's beneficial to you. Now, it's that simple. If you haven't access to your work, or anybody that has access to your work, especially when you're self-employed in that work, you only get paid for the hours you put in. I cannot see how that is twisted to say they're beneficial to our fishermen. So there's so much affecting us. The access to our own waters is one, like I pointed out.
Mm.
The regulations that Europe are increasingly putting on our fishermen, and then the effort that's happening in our waters from visiting fleets, not just from Europe, but from Norway and Iceland and the UK. They're the coastal states that are coming in. We have Japan and even Chinese, I'd say, vessels, Russian, just outside of our 200-mile zone, and they're also taking fish. And the only ones that are not allowed to catch a fair share of the fish in our own waters is the Irish fishermen. And that ultimately will lead to the destruction of our industry.
So talk to us first of all, if we can you talk to us about the access to the fish in our Irish waters? Let's start off with that.
Yeah, so like in 1973, when we joined Europe in the Treaty of Accession, we fell into negotiations for fishing rights across Europe. We had the Cod Wars and the Faroes with the UK, and they wanted to kick the foreign boats out of their waters so that they could protect their cod in their own waters. And they led to huge turmoil. So then the international United Nations brought in legislation to govern fishing rights in coastal states and waters belong to countries all over the world. And one simple rule was this: the country closest to the resource had the rights to access that right before anybody else because it was their waters. And when they couldn't catch all the fish, they were duly obligated to share that with other countries. Now that changed when we joined the European Union because a whole set of different parameters were put in place and the United Nations laws became secondary. So that meant that other countries who had been fishing in our waters illegally uh,
Mm.
suddenly became legal, and they were able to declare how much fish they were catching here or added to it. And we then had to set the share out between the different countries. To give one example, in Celtic Sea Sole, right, 7 BTK, a country that we all know, Belgium, where we go to see Brussels, has 84% of the sole in those waters, and we have 4%. And as a result, under the new regulations, point two I made, under the landing obligation, it means that if you don't have the fish to catch, then you must stop fishing. So if
Yeah.
you catch them, yeah, you're illegal. You're deemed to be illegally fishing. Imagine. So we have a situation where we have visiting boats coming in, filling their
Yes.
boats, landing alongside us in the pier. They have tons of these fish to land, and I mean tons, so thousands and thousands of kilos. And we have 50 kilos. That's what we were allowed to land. And now we don't even have those 50. So you see, there's an inequality in the legislation, we'll call it, the common fishery policy that's there. Now, we don't target the other fishermen because they're going to fish what they're entitled to fish.
Yeah.
It's the entitlement is what we want to see challenged, right? And very quickly, just to explain again, we are duty bound to follow the rules of the common fishery policy. But the common fishery policy, as I said, under the Treaty of Accession, when it was set up, no longer resembles that policy. And the reason being is because the UK left and they took all their fish with them and took fish back. And the principle of relative stability was completely and utterly upended. And the result of that now is we have more boats fishing in our waters, coming from the likes of Belgium and moving away from the English UK waters, catching their fish, and other countries. But not only that, we have the likes of Norway who are catching even more fish inside UK waters, and they're actually destroying the biological limits of the stocks that we all share, and they're wiping them out, is the simple way of doing that. And the European Union's answer is to keep cutting the amount of fish that we all have to catch, even though the other people take more. So the actual legislation that they have is no longer fit for purpose. We're looking for a review of this legislation to change it, but we want more of the United Nations laws of the seas, fair rules to be applied so that we can save our fishing industry. And people need to understand, and this is not make-up stuff, we're not being alarmist. We had hundreds and hundreds of boats when we joined the European Union in 1973. That number has been absolutely slashed and diminished. But the figures that I would like to concentrate on are just the ones that in 2004, we had 400 boats fishing off our shoreline, 400 families, all family-run businesses now. These aren't big companies. Now we're left with 140. But the 260 families that are gone also seen the rights that were afforded to any Irish person being extinguished, and nobody's picking that up. So 240 fishing licenses have been erased. So nobody can take up that opportunity in the future. And we're left with 140. And what I'm saying today, after our meeting above in Killybegs with all the other European producer organisations, many of them who are coming into our waters and fishing, are seeing a huge threat to their livelihoods, not only in Europe, but especially in Ireland. And the laws and the changes that are coming in will literally put us out of business. And this is despite the fact, and this is a fact, Ireland has the richest, most abundant fish in our own waters, yet we're the ones that will go out of business. And the Irish people won't realise it until it's too late. And look, I keep pointing to this fact. We had a sugar cane industry, making sugar in this country. We had nitrates, we had fertilizer making industry in this country. We had a peat harvesting system that grew organic vegetables. They're all gone now, and fishing is soon to follow. And once fishing goes, I can guarantee you farming is next.
Yeah.
Because these type of industries are going to be replaced like the likes of the Mercosur agreement. And the other countries, the industrialized countries, are going to trade off the selling of cars and machinery and items and household items that they're good at manufacturing to those countries for those rights. But our indigenous industries that were the foundation of our state when we came out of independence are being taken away from us, and the media are not covering it,
Yeah.
and it's wrong.
And Patrick, as regards our own politicians, what are they doing? Are they taking the fight to Europe? Are they pushing the, for the common fishery policy to be reviewed or amended, like you've been suggesting?
Yeah, we have been asking for that, and we met with the commissioner, and he's telling us to write down what we can do. But I think now at this stage, that's even too late, to be honest with you, Paul. I think we have past the point of no return. We're talking about climate change, and we've all these, people shouting up and down, and we go beyond a certain temperature, we're never going to recover. Well, I'm saying the same about our fishing industry. Like by the time we get any legislation or anything changed, unless we're going to have a complete stop and a reconfiguration of the fleet and access to our waters, the stocks themselves won't be able to recover. And everybody thinks, well, the wind farms will protect you. Well, we have to dig channels through the ground to lay cables, which is having a huge, massive impact on the seafloor. We're going to be putting in thousands and thousands of tons of concrete. We're going to be putting in electrical currents going through the ocean floor, and we're told there'll be no effect. I don't believe that. So we're going to impact the actual next generation of fish. We're not controlling migratory stocks during climate change, like the likes of the octopus that's having a huge effect on cetaceans, crustaceans, that are living on the seafloor. They're eating them and fish. So we're not responding to what was done before. And I'll put it very simply. When a fisherman was a fisherman in my father's time, he moved from whatever was profitable. So in other words, if boats found a haddock on the ground, they'd go at the haddock and they catch them, and
Yeah.
that's what fish you got to eat. If there was whiting, they
Yeah.
went to whiting, and they kept targeting the others. We brought in a new system called maximum sustainable yield, but that doesn't allow for that. So we have issues with invasive species such as boarfish now that we have a big quota for in our own country, and our boats can catch them. Yet the scientists are saying because they're a long-living fish, so in other words, that they live to a ripe old age, right? If you can't see babies coming into the biomass of the stocks, into their population, then they won't let you catch the big ones because they need them to spawn. But those big fish are eating the larvae of other fish. So you're not letting the balance of nature, which was normally regulated by fishermen, be regulated. And that's where we're seeing all the stocks are going down, 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 because the system that they've employed is not working. It's actually making things worse. And we're trying to say to our scientists and those rule makers, you can't legislate your way out of Mother Nature.
No.
You can help
No.
it. But at the moment, what they're doing is not working. But you have the NGOs and those other people that keep saying, no, 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 you're not following the law. If you followed the law, things would get better. And it's a nonsense, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, at this stage. It's 12 years now of consistent failure, and they still keep going with the bad management. Look, I watched a football match 2 minutes ago, Liverpool playing Burnley. If the manager didn't make the substitutions that he made, Liverpool could have lost the game, but they definitely wouldn't have won the game because the substitutes he made. So he seen the plan he had, 90 minutes at the start wasn't working. And in 90 minutes now, he made changes. We have a policy that was formed in 1984. And isn't it time now to make changes when you see what's happening outside there 40 years later? So if you can do it in a game of football in 90 minutes, 40 years, I think, is too long before you make the right changes to save what's happening outside there, which is the destruction of coastal communities, because you'll see it in your harbours. Go to Burton Port, go around to your steam around the country, go along the Wild Atlantic way. You'll see plenty yachts and dinghies and speedboats and all that. But the fishermen, they're not there anymore. And you can go there in bad weather as well, and they won't be there either because they're not there, because they're being removed. Is the nicest word. So they've been taken out. They're being substituted, but they're not going to be allowed to get back onto the pitch. Simple as that.
Before, Patrick, we move on to the regulations. If you were the the Minister for Agriculture right now, and you were over in Europe, what were the 3 things that you would implement straight away for the access to our fish for our waters? 3 things.
The first thing he has to do anyway is to assess the situation and speak to us, listen to the other organizations that are around Europe. That's one. Two, call in the departments and the Marine Institute and ourselves in and reconvene the Sea Fishery Liaison Group meeting that hasn't been convened, I'd say, in 2 years. And three, then listen, basically. They're the 3 things he needs to do. After that, then, Roisin, number 4 is he has to talk to the government and he has to ask them one simple question. Do you think Ireland should have a fishing fleet? That's all he has to ask them. And following that answer, then it's up to him to come back to us and go to a reasonable juncture, which is that we have to go to Europe and say, we've done our analysis. All these people have come together. This is what we're seeing here. This is what's happening in our waters. And on the current trajectory, we won't survive. But not just us. We'll be the first to go. But so will the other fleets. You know, they're going to fish and keep fishing beyond what is capable of being taken because the science is wrong. It's not giving the nature one. It's stuck on a political ideology, and the ideology is, oh, keep producing, keep producing, keep producing, and the stocks will go back up. That's not happening. And
then the action has to be brought in to actually give our fishermen the access to our fish.
yes, but not only that, like you're going to have to manage that access. Like, you know, it's not a case of just say, well, we'll remove the foreign boats and we'll just let the Irish boats come in. Under the Marine Atlas, there's around 400 to 500 boats fishing in Irish waters at any one time. If you watch closely on the video that you've shared, John Shine, he has a big map on the wall and it shows all the vessels that are fishing outside there. And it looks like there's a vessel within a couple of inches of everybody else. Look, that's not to scale, but it does show you how many vessels are there, like, you know, and there's just a lot more of them than us, and they're taking their share of the fish that they're entitled to. But I don't think it can sustain that. And again, then I want to be selfish about this. I'm putting on my Irish shirt first. And I want to look after our own communities and our own people, the own people inside the industry. People that have invested tens of millions in their equipment and their boats to catch fish, and then are told, well, tie it up to the pier wall there. You can go out in 8 or 9 months' time and go out for a few weeks and then tie it up again until next season. And you know, the other boats then that are trying to get out, that have to catch fish on a regular basis, keep the market supplied and everything like that. They're being told to go out and catch maybe 20 different species of fish and try and make a living with them, but have a set amount on each single one of them. And if you break the amount in any one of the 20, you're deemed to be illegally fishing. So the cure to it, to be honest with you, is a reconfiguration of the fleet. We need to take our fleet and park it rather than decommission it. So there's a plan for that. But the 3 things first is dialogue, get the information, and make a plan on how to respond just at home.
Yeah. So the regulations, talk to us about the regulations that are increasing on our Irish fisheries and the fishermen.
Yeah, so one story I'll have, you know, that people need to understand as well, what regulation means for everybody. Okay, so when I was running as a candidate for Europe, a lot of groups and interested parties would be calling to me to ask me my views on different things. So you'd learn when you'd be talking to these people. So the Insurance Bureau of Ireland, said to me, is that every time a regulation comes in, it actually means there's a greater risk. That's why legislation is brought. It's to identify and see whether we have to change something that's broken. You need to bring in regulation to make sure everybody follows it, and this is good for you in the long run. But that also means there's a risk there, and that's why the law is brought in. That means the insurance companies has to evaluate that and raise your premiums right across the board. So regulation doesn't just impact what you have to do. It's straight away, it increases risk, so your premiums to operate go up. That's one. Number two, then, is you have to bring in measures to incorporate that legislation into your working environment. It's a complete change. You have to adapt and work with that. That is always going to come at a cost. So even if you're struggling now, you're expected to adapt to more, because they don't reduce regulation. They don't make it easier and say, well, we're going to bring in this law so you can do less. It is always to do more. And that means there's more burden. So this regulation then is making it harder to work and operate, because there's more to comply with. And there is very little sympathy for anybody that breaks these regulations, because, as I said, the NGOs and everything are saying fishermen are doing it on purpose. So you have to punish them. You have to beat them into submission. When I think of this, I always like to put this image in people's head. Think of the building of the pyramids and the poor old guy that you see in the film that falls over. And instead of somebody going over, giving him a hand or a drink of water, they whip him. They beat him, or thump him or kick him. Well, that to me is what happens with regulations in Europe, because we try and amend it, we try and make it workable ourselves. That's my job. You sit down with the writers, with the lawmakers or the commission, and you say, look, and we do genuinely, and we try and make it workable. But we find a lot of the time is that our voices are construed as being objective, and of course we're going to say that, and we don't want it to come in, and we're being obstructive to this instead of constructive. So we're viewed with mistrust. They thank us very much, and they do what they're going to do anyway, which is very frustrating.
And Patrick, I remember you saying a previous video we did with you, um, interview, sorry, apologies. When you started fishing first, when you went out to sea, you needed about two documents. Now you need several. So I suppose that's an example of
Yeah,
regulation gone mad.
it's the same everywhere. Like any business, any food production, any company that was there or anything that was doing safe and healthy, and imagine the amount of jobs that are created out of the necessity for to follow regulations and inspectors and everything else. It's endless. There is more people now watching to producer than there are the producers. That's the fact. There's more people going around with clipboards looking at the people working to see what they're doing and to make sure they're doing it right than the people that are actually doing the job, right? And that goes to even into buildings now and everything else. Like, it's just, we've over-regulated. We don't trust people anymore to do their own jobs. Like, they have to be told how to do it. But the funny thing is that they're not the experts. The fellas coming in and inspecting haven't a clue. They learn it from a book. They have no practical knowledge. None of these have been on a boat or out. You never see a fisherman being a person that implements the regulations. It's always somebody else or somebody coming out of a school or whatever reads it from a book and turns around. And I keep saying this: which would you prefer to operate, John? Yeah, somebody that has 30 years experience inside in the operating theatre, or the guy that's learned all the newest techniques and is up to date on all the new theories, but has never held a scalpel? So which one would you want to operate? To me, it's the guy that has the 30 years experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
The
yeah.
educated fella that's reading what this man has done for the last 30 years, and I shouldn't be laughing, like, because it's serious, but look, I really appreciate you allowing us on in these moments, because it's a way of venting. But I've been right in what I've predicted since I've come into the industry, and I even spoke to my chairman today, and he's at his wit's end. He's done nothing wrong. Others have done wrong, and yet he's going to suffer. And the new boat that he bought for 10 million euros now is in jeopardy. But he didn't just buy that new boat, he gave up two boats to have the one. So, like, he's doing his best to try stay in conformity with the law and everything else, like, but he's finding it impossible now, the opportunities that are being given to him. Yet he knows there's plenty of fish there. He sees it. He can catch it with a blink of an eye. He could go out and fill his boat in the morning, bring in 1 million euros worth of fish, just like that. Genuinely. No problem if he was left. But he's not left. And then he's told that others can have more, not from Ireland, from anywhere in Europe, anywhere, seem to have more opportunities in his home ground than he has. It's very hard for somebody to take that and understand that through no fault of his own, he's suffering and he won't be able to support his family, where others are being given better rights than that man in his own waters by his own people. It's hard to take.
A bit, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and just in case people think that Patrick Murphy is complaining for the sake of complaining,
Oh,
I was one of those fishermen. I was self-employed. I have to earn every penny that I had from the age of 18 up until I got the job at 45 from that organization. So that's a long time earning my own crust from 18 to 45, right? So I know what they're going through. But I don't go through that anymore. They pay me. So every month I get my wages, I get my check. And in fairness to them, even though people would say that I should be getting more, I'm quite happy with what I'm getting because it's paying all my bills. And I don't have the same worries that I had about weather, conditions, storms, gales, anything else, market prices, or somebody else coming in and taking my stuff or damaging or whatever else. All the worries that I have are gone. So I'm not complaining for myself. What I am
no.
saying in all these interviews is that this is an Irish resource and the Irish people will be poorer for it if it's taken away from us or if the people that are in charge allow us to go out of business and see the same that happened with the sugar or the peat or with the nitrates. And there's probably lots more, to be honest with you. I think Irish
Yeah.
rope was another one that we don't make our own rope in Ireland anymore. I
Oh,
think that's made out in Dubai or somewhere like that. So like, you know, we're going to lose a part of our heritage or history, but the right to have food security, I think
Yeah.
it's a mistake. Of course I would, but I think it's tragic and I think it's wrong that the people that are there are being forced out of their industry that they've spent their lives trying to build up, you know. And I hope people will hear this interview, lads, and maybe people start to pay attention because it will affect all of us. We did put it out in RTE there recently and TG Car, but not just us, European colleagues. Fish will get more expensive. Fish will get scarce. And a food source that we genuinely need in our diet. We mightn't eat it every day, but we should certainly be eating it once a week. It's a good protein. It's a healthy food. It gives the body a break and you get the omega acids. There are so much benefits to a food that's natural. It's beyond belief, you know, and fish is that food. And people say, oh, leave the fish inside. I shared a video where this school of sprat was just wiped out by fish. That's nature. I'm an animal. Everybody is an animal, right? Everybody, every person. We have to eat, you know? So the same as the other animals, the same as your cat or your dog. We eat other animals. We've come an awful long way in our time on this planet where we do husbandry with animals and we rear them, we look after them, we rear our food and farmers rear it. Same with fishermen. We catch our food, we bring it in, we land it, and we try and do it as sustainably as possible, right? To feed other people,
Yes.
keep
To
other
feed the
people
nation.
going.
To
It's
feed the nation.
yeah. So like we do a service to everybody else, but then you have people that are paid to actually knock us, that are given funding to attack us.
Yeah.
And they get more money because the world is crazy, in my view, in that, because we need to be politically correct. But the people that risk their lives, like they go out in the water, they go through the storms and the gales, are vilified and attacked as soon as they come ashore, or even before they come ashore. And we've seen where our Taoiseach was attacked and his family threatened. I've said this many times. We see the same thing. We've seen a teacher create so much hate in Kerry that some students are giving out to other students because their parents are fishermen. Now that's wrong, like.
Patrick, out of what you've just said, they reminded me years ago, and you said people coming in and the regulators and telling people how to do things. In Derry, where I'm from, we were the shirt factory city of the world, right? And the manufacturers. 3 years before, all the shirt factories and all the manufacturers from denim, shirt factories, Fruits of the Loom, because Derry was a denim factory as well as a shirt factory. 3 years before that, you had people coming out of college doing time and study. to see how many shirts were, how long it took anyone to take a shirt out of the basket, put it on the Vertimat machine, and how long it went in, how long it came out, and then to put the collars on it, and then button it up and put it on a rail. 3 years before that, that was 3 years before all shirt manufacturing left Derry. The same thing is happening to this. They don't want us to produce our own fish. They don't want to help our local economies. They don't want to help the local communities, and our diets are suffering. And it's about time our Irish politicians said enough is enough. Irish fishermen and Irish marine and Irish fishermen and marine are going to take over our own waters. This is what the Irish people want. We want you to go out and catch our fish for us, and we don't want to be having foreign fishermen coming in and taking our fish, and then we have to buy it back at them at an extra cost. We want to support our own local fishermen the way we do our farmers. And it's an absolute crime. It is criminal. And it's criminal against Ireland and the Irish people and our Irish fishermen. But after that little rant, we'll go on to our third point. Talk to our viewers and tell our viewers about the increase in efforts from visiting fleets on the diminishing stocks. So that's a good follow on.
Yeah, so look, it's very simple. We watched the activity and its tracked of how many boats were coming into Irish waters before Brexit and the changes that were there. And you see, if you don't fish at your maximum, then the ones that you don't catch will help the stock recover even faster in the next calendar year and years after. But now you see what's after happening now is that margin, that grey area, that buffer is being taken because the other fleets are coming in and catching their full maximum, and that full maximum then is depleting the stocks that little bit further, and it's not allowing them to recover like they did in the past. But the wealth then is leaving our country, and these are brand new boats that are coming in. So just to explain this to people, I don't just make these claims unless I can back them up.
Yeah.
So I went to our local harbour master in Castletown Bay and I asked him for the statistics of the last number of years of the landings and who landed and what boats, what nationality were the boats. And you can see the Irish landings are going down, right? And the international landings are going up. In actual fact, Belgium hadn't landed, I'd say, once in 3 years, and this year already they have 12 landings. So you can imagine the increase in effort there now. They're also landing in other ports and harbours, and we're looking for those figures as well too to show what changes are there. That is also compounded by the fact that when they land, they fill multiple Arctic loads of fish. So they have so much fish and so much rights to fish. They might have 10 times more than their Irish colleagues. So they fill a lorry or two, whereas maybe it might take 4 or 5 of boats, Irish boats, to fill the same 4 lorries. Now, people might say, that's because the Irish aren't as good as fishermen as the others. Absolutely not. Irish fishermen are so good, they don't target, like I said at the start of the interview, the abundant fish because they're not allowed to. They're given a certain amount of quota for the calendar month. And if they exceed that in that calendar month, they're arrested.
Jesus, man, Joseph.
Right?
Crazy.
You see, so there's a very complex issue behind this, but like I put myself forward to run to go to Europe that I'd be able to say this at the European table and use the legislation and the laws and stuff that I know about the industry. And the people didn't feel I was the right person to go out there. So I couldn't spend the next 5 to 6 hours going through in a brief detail of the complexities of the Irish fishing industry and Europeans industry in fishing. But I can say, like you said, Paul, we had 1 or 2 documents going to see. Now we need a desk. You need to be compliant. But there's even more now and the more sophistication. And this is, we hear about digitization and that'll lower the workload. Not for a fisherman. We're still expected to upload data into that system and more regular with more and more details and more, traceability from our license originally and our qualifications now to the fish, the type of fish, where it's caught, when it's caught, how much it is, where it's stored, what quantities, were mixed fish, bycatch, what net you used, where you used it, how long you were using it for. Like you're talking about in minute detail now, down to the smallest nuance of your operation has to be reported. So much so now that we also have to have reports for the plastic that comes on board. So you get to buy your bottles inside and done stores, whatever else, and all you have to do is pay a few cents extra and you come back and deposit it, get your money back. Can you imagine if they said that we want to have a recording of everything that you buy and all the plastic that you do and show and record where those plastics go to and how you distributed them and then show your receipt? This is the regulations and the extra information that the people want. And here's the funny thing. They're also going to put cameras on board boats. But like you're talking about millions and millions
Can you
and
say that again, Patrick? They're putting
They're-
cameras where?
on the vessels as well too to watch what you're doing.
Oh.
But you see, so each vessel will generate massive amounts of data and recordings and stuff like that. So who's going to watch it? Like, are they going to get AI? Get rid of the people, so we'll be governed now by a robot or something else like that'll be in
What?
charge of the human being. People don't realize what was being said by what was his name, the lad in the wheelchair, the scientist,
Stephen Hawking.
yeah, they gave a warning that technology could be used or in a good way or it could overwhelm us. Technology will overwhelm us if we
Yeah.
start using it like this. Anyway, sorry, I might have went a little bit off track. Roisin, there's so much information and knowledge, we could be talking for the next couple of hours, so I'm very cognizant of that. So a thought did creep into my mind about the next steps that we could do in the next talk of genuinely. So that's the first thing Minister Hayden and Timmy Dooley should be doing is gathering the information. But if you keep this in your head and take a note of this, we've already, in my organisation, made requests through the Department of Marine to the Marine Institute on data that we need to show what's been happening in recent years. And I'd like to report on that the next time to see where we are with it, how far it's gone, and whether or not the questions I asked were understood. But I will explain it to yourselves the next time in very fine detail. And we'll see, will you be able to understand it, or the listeners? And look,
Yes.
I believe that people should be looking at the likes of this stuff, making comments, coming back to people, because this isn't us having a chat. We're talking about Ireland's resource, Ireland's. And if you're an Irish person, this is your resource.
Yes.
You might be going out to catch this fish, but somebody else is doing it for you. You get to eat it. But it's money into the exchequer. It creates jobs and employment, and it's food security that we have Irish people taking and bringing it. It would be terrible to give it away to somebody else, and that's where we're heading.
I think it's not terrible, it's criminal.
That's where we can delve into the next time on the show, lads. Okay.
Okay, so Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the Irish Political Roundup, to Paul and myself, because it is so important that this message gets out there to what is happening to our Irish fishermen, our Irish fisheries, what's happening in our Irish fishing waters and our Irish sea and its surrounding, because we are an island. But more, and also importantly, what is happening to our food resource. Our farmers they can make noise, but our fishermen, we need to support our fishermen as well as what we do our farmers.
I appreciate that, Roisin. Yeah, and thanks, Paul.
And I suppose it's also as well, Patrick, as you said, if you're in agriculture or farming, you need to keep an eye on what's happening in the fishing industry, because if the fishing industry, as you said, it's going in a pretty dangerous direction, and agriculture could be next. So I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, particularly with the whole Mercosur agreement that is coming down the traps as well. Do you think that'll have any impact on fishing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I like if people that are working inside the control and enforcement of fishing no longer have a job to do, they'll be moved over very quickly into agriculture. And look, the
Maybe
same.
that's the plan. Maybe that's the plan.
And And
Okay.
there's good guys out there now with videos that are actually challenging the ideology that's contradicting itself, you know. And but we can talk about that the next day, and we can
Next
move
time.
into a little bit of farming. No
Yeah.
problem,
Maybe
Paul. And
what we might do as well is invite, we had our American correspondent over, and we can talk about and he was actually did a video and interview with an Irish fisherman in Doolin, and he put that up too. So, and farming, he's a farmer as well as a gas and oil expert. So,
mm,
and he's interested in the fisheries as well. So, Patrick, once again, thank you so much indeed for taking the time to speak to the Irish Political Roundup.
thank you so much.